Hello, I'm Jazz Rose, CEO at J&C Education and author of Teaching Primary PE. And I'm here today to talk about cues. I was in between schools the other day and I went into the local co-op, and as I grabbed my lunch, there was a long queue. It's trailed all the way around the corner. And as I walked past the people in the queue, people were very upset. They were very annoyed. They were looking at their watch. Oh, this is an awfully long queue. Oh, this is not the right standard. People were complaining to each other. It was a horrible experience. And I say that to say this. People don't like queues. So, why is that relative? People don't like queues. So therefore, why do we see it so often in teaching primary PE? What is the common rationale behind this? Well, we often hear things like, well, there's not enough equipment. Equipment, resources in teaching primary PE, if you want to teach excellent or effective lessons, you've really got to have the right resources. It's going to make the pupil progress so much faster. It really is a non-negotiable. Second thing is people talk about space. Oh, I'm not quite sure how to manage a space. Oh, I'm not sure if things will get quite out of hand. I remember seeing a basketball lesson indoor, and it was a really small room, probably one of the smallest halls I've ever seen in my life. And the children were sitting there, and they were sitting on the floor, and they were bouncing the ball, and they were practicing tactile ball handling. Now, there's so many ways that you can practice tactile ball handling skills that are on the spot, that link to the national curriculum, that link to teaching effective primary PE. So when you go back out there in large space, children really have the tactile skills. They really have the close handling, the tight control that you're looking for in order for them to accelerate progress. So in this particular basketball lesson, they were bouncing it between their leg on the floor, and then they were rotating it around their waist, and then they were looking at technical skill of clawing it forwards and backwards. They were looking at the V dribble. All of these things you can incorporate tactile ball handling in order to leverage the space that you have and use it as an advantage as opposed to a disadvantage. So what is the difference between an ordinary teacher and an exceptional teacher? Essentially, the exceptional teacher drives pupil progress faster than the ordinary teacher. So surely that is our goal, in order to drive impact and pupil progress as fast as humanly possible. So the next question is, are we going to drive faster progress by having children waiting in lines or no? That's a question that you've really got to think about and answer. Now, you've really got to think about how you can replan your lesson to avoid having queues at all costs. It's not a fish and chip shop. Humans don't like waiting. It's human nature. So let's think about different ways in which we can replan and really refocus that energy. Now, if there is this is a big if you really think that the fastest and most effective way, for whatever reason, to drive pupil progress in that particular lesson is to have a cue, there's a very specific way that you should do it. The first thing is you've got to line them up in a diagonal line. This way, pupils that are not actually actively on the mark and on the run, ready to go, they can see what's going on ahead of them. They can assess where the strengths and weaknesses are, and they can make adjustments to their own game, to their own improvement. The second thing is, if and where possible, get them active too. I say if and when possible, it's always possible, right? Get them active too. So the first thing is to look at, again, tactile ball handling. If they're doing basketball, perhaps they could be tapping it between their fingers. Perhaps they're just bouncing it on the spot whilst looking ahead for the next person that's coming to take over. Perhaps they're rotating the ball around their hips. If it's cricket, for example, perhaps they're throwing the ball up and catching it using the cage technique that they've acquired in the main activity or in the acquire phase of the lesson. There's so many different ways you can do it. Perhaps you might be thinking, oh, I've only got 10 balls, I don't have enough resources. Perhaps then they can work on coordination activities. Perhaps then it's simply jumping side to side over the cone. And then on the next round, on the next phase, you think about jumping forwards and back. And then you progress to hopping over the cone, talking about balance and the way that this impacts the way that they dribble, or whatever skill that you're trying to drive, whatever skill that you're focused on in targeting towards the end of that lesson journey. I hope this lesson's helped. I hope this video's helped. And the key things are, humans don't like cues. Avoid them at all costs. I know it sounds harsh, but it's really, really true. Avoid them at all costs. If you can't avoid them, have them in a diagonal line where they can see what's going on, and really keep them active. PE lessons should always be 80% as a minimum active. So keep the children actively engaged, keep them smiling, keep having fun. I really hope that this video is useful to you. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube page if you like the content, and also you can add me on Instagram. It's JazRose, J&C Education. Have a really excellent week of teaching primary PE. See you again next week.